The sea is already churning when the first hull strikes the sand. Wood groans. Oars rise dripping from the water. Bronze flashes in the hard light of dawn as ship after ship grinds against the shore of Marathon Bay. The horizon itself seems to move. A forest of masts advancing through the morning haze, sails heavy with the wind of empire. The Persians have arrived. Thousands pour onto the narrow strip of beach. Armor clatters, shields lock into ordered ranks. Horses scream as they are forced down wooden ramps into the surf, their hooves churning the shallows into clouds of foam and mud. Commands echo in unfamiliar tongues, sharp, disciplined, relentless. The earth trembles beneath the measured tread of an army that has crossed continents. Behind them lies the vastness of the Persian Empire, from the burning deserts of Asia to the ancient cities of the East. Before them stands a small, defiant land. Above the bay, along the rugged slopes that frame the plain, the Athenians watch. They are farmers and craftsmen, citizens called from their homes. They grip their spears tightly, knuckles pale against the ash wood. The morning air carries the scent of salt and wet leather, mingled with something colder, the weight of what approaches. From their vantage point, the invaders seem endless, ranks unfolding across the shore like a dark tide. Fear moves quietly among the Greek lines. It is not spoken, but it is felt, in the tightening of jaws, in the silence between breaths. They know the stories, cities burned, nations subdued, kings who kneel or vanish, and now the empire stands at their doorstep. The plain of Marathon stretches wide between the hills and the sea, a space vast enough to swallow armies. Marshlands glisten at its edges, still and watchful. The rising sun casts long shadows over the ground, where men will soon kill and die. Even the wind seems to hesitate, as if the land itself senses what is to come. Below, Persian banners rise, symbols of authority carried across the world. Their presence is a declaration, not merely of invasion, but of inevitability. Submission has followed them everywhere they have marched. Yet the Greeks do not retreat. They stand upon the heights, few against many, watching the enemy claim the shore. Between the two forces lies a silence thick with dread and possibility, the fragile space before history chooses its course. The day has begun. The empire has come. And the fate of a small city now waits upon this quiet, trembling shore. In Athens, the news arrives like a thunderclap. Messengers, breathless with dust and urgency, bring word from the coast. The Persians have landed. Marathon is lost to silence and steel. The empire's shadow has fallen across Attica. A tremor passes through the city. The markets fall quiet. Workshops stand abandoned. Citizens gather in tight circles beneath the rising heat of the day, voices low, faces drawn with uncertainty. For a generation, the threat has lingered beyond the horizon. Whispers of a king whose power stretches farther than sight, whose armies swallow nations whole. Now that distant force stands only a day's march away. Athens must choose. Within the assembly, beneath the open sky, debate ignites with fierce urgency. Some speak of caution. The Persians are vast beyond reckoning, their victories carved across continents. Submission, they argue, may spare the city from fire and ruin. To bow is to survive. Others answer with defiance. They remember the tyrants cast out not long before, the fragile birth of their freedom, the hard-won right of citizens to shape their own fate. To surrender now would mean more than tribute. It would mean chains upon the spirit of the city, the slow death of all they have become. Fear presses heavily upon every voice. No one doubts the cost of resistance. To fight is to risk annihilation, the burning of homes, the enslavement of families, the erasure of their name from history. Yet something stronger than fear moves among them. Resolve. Athens is no empire. It commands no vast territories, no endless armies. Its strength lies in its people, citizens who stand not because they are ordered, but because they choose to stand. The decision forms not from arrogance, but from necessity, from the unyielding belief that freedom, once surrendered, is never easily reclaimed. The vote is cast. Athens will resist. Across the city, preparations begin at once. Armor long stored is brought into the light. Bronze is polished, leather straps tightened, shields lifted once more onto waiting arms. Fathers embrace their children with silent gravity. Mothers watch with steady eyes, saying nothing of their fear. There will be no retreat behind walls, no waiting for destruction to arrive at their gates. They will meet the invader in the open field. As the sun descends over the Acropolis, its fading light washes the city in solemn gold. The decision has been made. Between survival and liberty, Athens has chosen its path. And beyond the hills, at Marathon, the empire waits. Even as Athens chooses defiance, a harsher truth settles upon the city. They cannot stand alone. Beyond their walls lies an enemy whose numbers seem without limit, whose power has crushed kingdoms greater than theirs. If Athens is to survive, help must come swiftly, or not at all. A single runner is chosen. Before the first light breaks over the city, he departs through the gates, a lone figure carrying the fate of Athens upon his breath. His path leads south across harsh valleys and stony ridges, over unforgiving ground that tears at the feet and scorches the lungs. He runs not for glory, but for time itself. Across nearly 200 kilometers of wilderness, he runs to Sparta. The land is merciless. Dust rises beneath his steps. The sun climbs and burns overhead. Day yields to night, and still he presses forward, driven by a simple plea. Come, or Athens falls. His journey is a contest against exhaustion, against pain, against the silent fear that even such effort may be too late. At last, he reaches the city of warriors. Sparta listens, its rulers hear the urgency, the desperation, but law and ritual bind their hands. Sacred observances forbid them from marching at once. They promise aid, yet not in time for the battle that approaches. The runner turns back, with the answer no Athenian wished to hear. Athens will face the empire alone, yet not entirely alone. From the small neighboring city of Plataea comes an act of quiet courage. 1,000 men march to stand beside Athens, not compelled by power or tribute, but by loyalty and shared fate. Their numbers are few, their gesture immense. In the shadow of empire, even the smallest alliance carries the weight of hope. They assemble beneath the open sky, forming ranks of bronze and wood. Shields overlap. Spears rise in ordered lines. The phalanx takes shape. A wall of men bound together by discipline and necessity. Days pass in tense stillness. From the hills above the plain, the Greeks watch the Persian camp spread along the shore. Fires burning through the night, ships anchored like a dark horizon upon the sea. The enemy's presence is constant, immense, unyielding. Every hour of waiting sharpens the strain. Among the Greek commanders, debate smoulders. Some urge caution, fearing the vast numbers below. Others argue for action before the Persians advance inland. Each decision carries the weight of survival or ruin. Time tightens around them like a closing fist. Reinforcements may yet come from Sparta, but will they arrive before the enemy strikes? The question hangs over every council, every restless night, every silent watch upon the hills. Between the two armies lies the plain of Marathon, quiet and unmoving. Soon it will decide everything. The battlefield reveals itself slowly, like a silent judge awaiting its sentence. The plain of Marathon lies stretched between mountain and sea, a broad expanse of earth where wind bends the tall grasses and the sun hardens the soil beneath bare feet. To the east, the waters of the bay glimmer with deceptive calm, Persian ships resting at anchor like patient predators. To the west, steep hills rise in rugged silence, their stony slopes hemming the land in narrow confines. It is a place shaped not for comfort, but for decision. Marshlands brood along the edges of the plain, dark and treacherous. Their still waters conceal soft ground that swallows men and beasts alike. Movement here is perilous. Formation breaks, order dissolves. Even the mightiest army may falter in their grip. Between these hazards lies the open ground, the only path where thousands can meet in battle. For the Greeks, the land offers both hope and danger. They are few, dangerously few, and the wide plain threatens to expose them to the full strength of the Persian host. The enemy's cavalry, swift and devastating, could sweep across the open field, shattering their lines before spear ever meets shield. Yet the hills behind the Greek position provide a measure of protection. They narrow the field, limiting the space in which the Persian numbers can unfold. Here, geography may serve as an ally where numbers cannot. The commanders study the ground with careful eyes. Every rise and hollow, every patch of firm earth or hidden mire carries the weight of survival. The placement of a single line of men, the distance between ranks, the timing of a movement, all will be shaped by the silent contours of this land. Strategy is no longer theory, it is written in soil and stone. Below, the Persian army spreads across the shore in immense confidence. Their camp dominates the coastal edge, ordered and vast. From their vantage, the plain appears as an open invitation, a stage upon which their superiority in numbers and skill can be unleashed. But the land does not belong to them. The wind that sweeps across the grasses carries the scent of Attica. The breath of a homeland the Greeks refuse to surrender. To those who stand upon the heights, this ground is more than terrain. It is the threshold between freedom and submission. Day after day, the two armies face one another across the silent field. No arrow flies, no charge is given. Yet the tension grows heavier with each passing hour, as if the earth itself holds its breath. Here, on this narrow stretch between mountain and sea, geography and fate converge. Soon, men will step forward, and the land will decide their destiny. Across the silent plain, two armies wait, separated by distance, divided by more than war. Below, along the curve of the bay, the Persian host moves with the calm assurance of power long tested and rarely challenged. Their ranks stretch wide across the shore, a living expression of an empire that spans deserts, mountains, and ancient rivers. They are soldiers of the great king, men drawn from countless lands, bound together beneath a single command. Their armor gleams in the sun, scaled corselets of bronze and iron, wicker shields light upon the arm, curved bows strung with deadly precision. Archers test their weapons with practiced ease. Cavalry horses stamp and toss their heads, restless with contained strength. Standards ripple in the sea wind, symbols of authority carried from the heart of Asia to this distant frontier. They march not merely to conquer territory, but to restore order. To the Persians, rebellion is a disease that must be extinguished. Years before, Athens had aided a revolt against the empire's rule, a defiance that could not go unanswered. Now the king's will has reached across the sea, seeking justice, tribute, and submission. Resistance is not simply opposition, it is disorder against the natural harmony of imperial rule. Confidence fills their camp. They have seen nations tremble at their approach. They expect the same here. High above them stand the Greeks. Their army is smaller, starkly, dangerously small. There are no lavish banners, no vast diversity of peoples. They are men of one land, one tongue, one fragile experiment in self-rule. Farmers who once guided plows now grip spears. Potters, blacksmiths, and merchants stand shoulder to shoulder, transformed into soldiers by necessity. Their armor is heavy, bronze helmets pressing upon their brows, great round shields resting against their left arms, long spears balanced in steady hands. Each man's shield protects not himself alone, but the comrade beside him. Their strength lies not in numbers or wealth, but in unity, a wall of bodies and will, bound together by trust. They do not fight for a distant king. They fight for their homes, their families, their freedom to choose their own destiny. Behind them lies Athens, its temples, its streets, its uncertain future. Defeat would mean more than loss of land. It would mean the end of the life they know. Among their ranks, fear is present, yet it sharpens rather than weakens. Each man understands the weight of what approaches. Each knows there is no retreat that does not lead to ruin. Thus, the plain becomes more than a battlefield. It is a meeting of two visions of the world: empire and autonomy, command and consent, vast power against fragile liberty. Neither side can yield without surrendering what defines it. The sun climbs higher above Marathon, casting equal light upon both armies. And in that shared light, destiny draws nearer. Morning breaks with a hard, merciless light. Across the plain of Marathon, the two armies stand facing one another in heavy silence. The distance between them is vast, a wide expanse of open ground, where arrows can fall like rain and cavalry can gather terrible speed. The Persians wait in ordered ranks, confident in their strength, their archers poised, their lines unbroken. Then, from the Greek position, a movement begins. A signal passes down the line. Swift, unmistakable. The phalanx advances. At first, it is a measured step, shields locked, spears steady, bronze armor glinting beneath the rising sun. Thousands move as one, the earth trembling beneath their united tread. Dust lifts around their feet. The silent field awakens to the sound of marching men. The Persians watch, astonished. The Greeks do not halt. As the distance closes and the threat of arrows grows near, the pace quickens. What begins as a march becomes something extraordinary. The entire Greek line surges forward into a run. Burdened with shield and armor, weighed down by spear and helmet, they charge across the open plain. They run toward the storm. The ground rushes beneath their feet, breath burns in their lungs. The air fills with the thunder of thousands moving as one body, one will. Fear drives them forward as much as courage, the knowledge that hesitation means death beneath Persian arrows. From the Persian ranks comes sudden motion. Bows rise. Arrows darken the sky. A deadly cloud descends upon the charging Greeks, hissing through the air, striking shields with sharp, splintering force. Some men fall, cut down before reaching the enemy. Others press on without breaking stride, lifting their shields against the storm, closing the distance with relentless speed. The gap narrows, 100 paces, then 50. The roar of battle erupts. With a thunderous crash, bronze meets wicker, spear strikes shield, and the fragile silence of Marathon shatters. The Greek charge slams into the Persian line with overwhelming force. The impact is violent, chaotic, a collision of worlds unleashed in a single terrible moment. Men strain against one another in desperate struggle. Spears thrust and splinter, shields grind together with the weight of bodies behind them. The air fills with the clash of metal, the cries of the wounded, the fierce shouts of men fighting for survival. Along the Greek wings, the heavily armored hoplites press forward with brutal momentum, their discipline and weight driving deep into the Persian flanks. The invaders stagger under the shock, their lighter shields buckling, their formation wavering. But at the center, the gamble reveals its cost. There the Greek line, stretched thin, begins to falter. Persian forces surge forward with growing strength, pressing against the weakened ranks, forcing them back step by step. The line bends. The danger of collapse looms. The battle hangs in the balance. Across the plain of Marathon, dust and blood mingle beneath the rising sun. Victory and destruction stand separated by moments, by endurance, by will, by the fragile strength of men who have chosen to run toward destiny rather than yield to fear. At the heart of the battlefield, the Greek line begins to give way. Pressed by the full weight of the Persian assault, the weakened center staggers beneath the storm. Arrows fall at close range. Spears thrust relentlessly. The invaders push forward with gathering force, their numbers swelling against the thinning ranks before them. Bronze shields grind backward across the dust. Greek soldiers strain to hold their ground, muscles trembling beneath the crushing pressure. The formation wavers, gaps open, one by one men fall, and the line bends further still. The Persians surge into the breach with fierce cries, sensing the moment of victory close at hand. For an instant, it seems the gamble has failed. The center yields, driven back across the plain. The army of Athens appears on the brink of ruin, its heart collapsing, its resistance splintering beneath the empire's strength. Persian banners advance through the dust, their momentum swelling like an unstoppable tide. But beyond the chaos at the center, another struggle unfolds. On the Greek wings, the battle takes a different course. There the heavily armored hoplites fight with terrible determination. Shield presses against shield in suffocating closeness. Spears strike with relentless rhythm. The disciplined weight of the phalanx bears down upon the Persian flanks, where lighter troops struggle to withstand the crushing force. The Persian lines begin to fracture. Step by step, the Greek wings drive them back. The invaders' formation loosens, then breaks. Men stumble over the fallen, commands dissolve into confusion. The confidence that once filled the Persian ranks gives way to uncertainty, then fear. and in that moment, the shape of the battle changes. The Greek wings do not pursue blindly. Instead, as if guided by a single will, they turn inward. From both ends of the field, the victorious flanks wheel toward the center, their bronze shields forming a tightening arc around the Persian advance. The trap closes. The very strength that drove the Persians forward now seals their fate. Pressed from the front by the retreating Greek center and struck from both sides by the advancing wings, the invaders find themselves surrounded. Their numbers become a burden, their ranks crushed into suffocating disorder. Panic spreads. The clash becomes a desperate struggle for survival. Persian soldiers fight to break free of the encircling wall, but the Greek lines hold firm, relentless and unyielding. The tide of battle, once surging toward Athenian defeat, now turns with unstoppable force. Where confidence had reigned, fear now takes root. Across the plain of Marathon, the balance of power shifts. What had begun as a moment of near collapse becomes a stunning reversal. A triumph forged from discipline, courage, and a gamble carried to its terrible conclusion. The empire's advance falters, and the fate of the day begins to change. The breaking point comes suddenly. Encircled and crushed from every side, the Persian ranks dissolve into chaos. Commands vanish beneath the roar of battle. Formation gives way to confusion, and confusion to fear. What had been an army becomes a mass of men struggling to survive. The Greeks press forward without mercy. Shields locked, spears thrusting, they drive the invaders back across the blood-soaked plain. The ground is choked with fallen bodies, the air thick with dust and cries of terror. The Empire's soldiers, moments before advancing in triumph, now turn toward the only refuge left: the sea. Panic spreads toward the shoreline. Men rush for the ships anchored in the bay, stumbling through mud and marsh, casting aside shields in desperate flight. Greek warriors pursue them to the water's edge, striking as the defeated scramble aboard their vessels. The surf churns red as struggle erupts at the hulls of the ships. Some vessels are seized, others push frantically into deeper water, oars beating against the waves as they escape destruction. At last, the Persian fleet withdraws from the shore. Silence slowly returns to the plain of Marathon, broken only by the groans of the wounded and the restless wind over the fallen. The invaders have been driven back, their great advance shattered, but the cost of victory lies heavy upon the field. Even as dust settles on Marathon, there is no time to rest. Victory has been won on the plain, but the city itself still waits, vulnerable, exposed. Rumors of Persian ships moving along the coast spread like fire. Every moment of delay could invite a second assault, one that would undo all that has been fought for. The Greeks gather what strength remains and begin a forced march back toward Athens. Spears scratch along the dust, feet pound the hard earth. Men who have just survived slaughter now push themselves to endure further exhaustion, driven by fear, duty, and the knowledge that failure now means ruin. Behind them, the wind carries the faint glint of Persian sails along the horizon. Ahead lies their home, the city of marble and stone, temples and streets they must defend at all costs. The runners, the fighters, the exhausted hoplites, all move as one body, propelled by a single thought. The fight is not over until Athens itself stands secure. Marathon has been won, but survival demands more than courage on a single day. It demands endurance, resolve, and a readiness to meet fate wherever it may strike next. The plain of Marathon is quiet now, but its story is already spreading. Athens stands. The Persian army has been repelled. The small city has defied an empire that seemed unstoppable, proving that courage, discipline, and unity can turn the tide against overwhelming odds. Bronze shields are dented, spears shattered, and bodies lie across the grass, yet the cost is measured not in despair, but in survival. News travels fast. Across Greece, the tale of Marathon ignites hope. Other city-states glimpse the possibility of resisting tyranny, of defending their homes against forces that seem unconquerable. For a moment, the shadow of the Persian Empire feels less absolute, its vast power no longer unassailable. Marathon reshapes the future, quietly but irrevocably. It is more than a victory in battle. It is a statement, a declaration, that freedom, though fragile, can be defended. The ripples of that day will extend far beyond the fields where spears clashed, shaping the identity of a people who refuse to kneel. In that quiet aftermath, the empire's reach is challenged, and a new chapter of history begins, one where the smallest cities can alter the fate of nations. Marathon becomes more than a battle, it becomes a symbol. The memory of ordinary men standing against an empire echoes through the generations. Farmers, craftsmen, and citizens who took up bronze and spear that day are remembered not as soldiers alone, but as the embodiment of a city's will, the human spirit refusing subjugation. Across Greece, the story spreads. It inspires unity, courage, and a belief that freedom is worth every risk. The small victory at Marathon proves that an empire, no matter how vast, is not invincible when met with resolve, strategy, and collective courage. The plains, once stained with blood, now carry a legacy. A testament that choice, action, and daring can shape history. Marathon marks the moment when ordinary men defied a king, and in doing so, altered the destiny of a civilization. It is a defining point, a day when courage became timeless.